Hello and welcome to NCPA On Stage. I'm your host, Ying. The NCPA production of Wagner's monumental opera, The Ring Cycle Das Rheingold, has staged in Beijing this August and has received wide acclaim for its stunning visual effects, powerful performances, and innovative staging. Audiences were captivated by the grandeur of Wagner's music and the unique interpretation brought to life by the production team. Today we'll take you behind the scenes of this extraordinary performance and explore what makes Das Rheingold such an iconic piece of operatic history. First, we'll hear from the multi-talented Italian director, Mr. Stefano Poda, who not only directed Das Rheingold, but also took on multiple roles in this production, including choreography, set and costume design. Following that, we'll have a discussion with Ms. Wei Lanfen, the producer of Das Rheingold at the NCPA, who will share her perspective on bringing this epic production to Chinese audiences. Mr. Poda will be speaking in Italian, and I will provide the voice-over translation for his responses. So let's first dive into our conversation with Mr. Stefano Poda. Mr. Poda, it's an honor to have you on the program. I've seen the dress rehearsal and final performance of Das Rheingold, and the entire stage was absolutely spectacular. Are you satisfied with the overall presentation?
Io sono sempre contento, felice quando vedo la nascita di un nuovo figlio, di una nuova creazione.
I am always happy, delighted when I see the birth of a new child, a new creation. After so much work, it's like giving birth, and that's when a new dimension, a new phase is born. It is always a good omen, and there is a deep inner happiness and also infinite gratitude towards those who have accompanied me from the beginning on this adventure, believing in it, putting in all their energy, all their effort, so much work, an immense amount of work.
The Ring Cycle is a well-known mythological story in the West, but many Chinese audiences might not be very familiar with it. Could you give us a brief introduction to the story?
Credo che quando si parla di mitologie si tocca sempre l'anima antica di ognuno di noi, di tutti i popoli.
I believe that when we talk about mythologies, we always touch on the ancient soul of each of us, of all peoples. And in the end, we talk about cosmogony, that is, the origin of the world, of our universe. And in the end, all mythologies embrace each other, they shake hands. In the end, they all speak of the same thing. Of course, for Wagner, the main reference was the Nibelungenlied, this other cycle, which he then transformed and took further.
In realtà quello che a lui interessava era un poema.
In reality, what interested him was a poem built in his own way, Gesamtkunstwerk, that is, a total work of art, especially philosophical. This is a dimension that contemporary man neglects today. Today, we feel so secure with technology, with progress, that we are perhaps neglecting the most important, the most fragile part of humanity, which is the spiritual aspect.
Che stiamo trascurando forse la parte più importante, più debole dell'uomo, che è l'aspetto spirituale. E infatti per questo sono contento di affrontare
And indeed, for this reason, I am happy to undertake this cycle here in China, because paradoxically, here I have that freedom which the new world, a world that looks to the future with more strength and need, allows.
In this production, you've taken on multiple roles, from directing to choreography and design. Do you find that wearing multiple hats allows you to more fully express your creative ideas?
Io ho sempre, da quando io ho incominciato a lavorare molto giovane,
Since I
Ho
started working
sempre
very, very
fatto
young,
tutto
I have always
insieme,
done
non ho mai
everything
fatto
together.
differenza tra
I have never made a
regia,
distinction between
scene,
direction, sets,
costumi,
costumes,
luci
lights, and
e
choreography.
coreografia. Per
For
me
me, the artistic
il
product
prodotto
is and must be
artistico è e
unified.
deve essere unitario. Io sono una specie di artigiano che chiude gli occhi, ascolta la musica e con
I am
tanto
a
tanto
kind of
lavoro e
craftsman
con
who closes his
tanta
eyes, listens to the music, and with a lot
determinazione
of hard work
arriva
and
a
determination
ricreare
creates
un
another
altro
world,
mondo,
a parallel world,
proprio
a world that
un
first is
mondo
a dream and
parallelo,
then becomes
un mondo
physical.
che
I have
prima
always
è un
done this in
sogno e
all my
poi diventa
productions.
fisico.
By now, I
Questo l'ho
believe I have
sempre
done more
fatto
than
in
100
tutte le mie
productions
produzioni,
worldwide,
ormai sono
but I
arrivato,
have
credo,
always worked
a
this
molto
way
più di
and wouldn't know
100
how to do it
produzioni
any
in
other
tutto il
way.
mondo, ma ho sempre fatto così e non saprei fare altrimenti. Per me è impensabile distinguere le discipline, ma
For
soprattutto
me, it is
perché la
unthinkable to
musica,
separate the
l'opera
disciplines,
è
especially
la
because music,
riunione
opera
di
is the
tutte le
union of all
discipline, di tutte
disciplines, all the arts,
le
all the
arti,
forms through
di
which
tutte le
man can and
forme
must express
con cui
himself.
l'uomo può
Music
e deve
frees thought,
esprimersi.
makes it
La
unified,
musica
becomes spirit.
libera il
Therefore, it
pensiero,
cannot,
lo
from a
rende
technical point of view, be divided and
unitario.
separated.
L'opera è un invito a rompere le barriere tra le discipline.
For
Io
me,
sono un
opera
artista
isn't to break
e
down the
così
barriers
mi
between
esprimo.
disciplines.
Per
I
esempio
am
un
an artist,
pittore
and this is how I express myself.
dipinge il
For
suo
example, a painter
quadro,
paints his picture, a
uno
writer writes his book.
scrittore
A
di
painter
fare
does
degli
not ask
interventi ad
other
un
painters to
poeta o ad uno
intervene in his work.
specialista.
A
Cerca
writer
durante
does not
tutta la sua
ask a
vita di
poet or a
imparare
specialist to
a
make
trasmettere in
contributions to
maniera
his writing.
completa ed
He spends
esaustiva
his whole
la
life
propria
learning,
ispirazione. Questo è
learning to
quello che
convey
io
his
faccio, ho
inspiration
cominciato
fully
molto
and
presto ed ogni
exhaustively.
volta
This is what I
imparo
do.
qualcosa di più, ma per arrivare alla completezza. Certo, io sono e resterò un artista indipendente, come lo è il cinema indipendente.
I started very
Non
early, and
faccio
each time I
parte
learned something
di un
more, but to
sistema,
achieve completeness.
come dire,
Of course, I
commerciale
am and
o
will remain an independent artist, just like independent
di
cinema.
larga
I am not part
distribuzione.
of a commercial system or
Sono
wide
il
distribution.
rappresentante, diciamo, di un
I am a
tipo
representative
di
of a
proposta
type of
che
proposal
resta
that
di
remains
nicchia.
niche.
The first act of Das Rheingold takes place at the bottom of the Rhine. You designed a scene with water where the performers actually sing and perform in water on stage. How challenging was it to achieve such an effect?
Il Rheingold incomincia con un accordo profondo,
Rheingold begins
di
with a deep chord,
contrabbasso,
this double bass
che
vibrato, which
è
marks the very origin of the
segna
world.
proprio l'origine
But
del
where does the
mondo. Ma dove
origin of every
avviene l'origine
civilization
di
occur?
ogni
From the great
di ogni
rivers.
civiltà? Dai grandi fiumi, il Nilo in Egitto,
The Nile in
il
Egypt,
Reno
the Rhine for
nei
the Nordic
paesi
countries,
nordici,
the Yellow River in
il fiume
China.
giallo in Cina.
Great
Le
civilizations
grandi
arise
civiltà
nourished by the great
sorgono
rivers. Therefore,
irrorate
in
dai
this
grandi
case, the
fiumi.
river, the
Quindi
water,
in questo
becomes the
caso
representation of the
il fiume,
unconscious.
l'acqua, diventa la rappresentazione dell'inconsciente. L'acqua è liquido amniotico.
Water is amniotic
È
fluid. It is the quintessential
l'elemento per
element.
eccellenza.
Water allows us to psychologically regress and
L'acqua
understand the
ci
origin of the
permette
universe. I have
di
set everything there.
regredire psicologicamente e di
At the
capire
beginning,
l'origine
all the elements,
dell'universo.
water, fire, earth, and
Lì
air,
ho
coexist in
inventato
peace and
tutto.
serenity. The water
Ecco,
nymphs protect the element in its origin, which
all'inizio
thus
tutti
has
gli
no
elementi,
connotations yet.
acqua,
Only
fuoco,
Alberic, the
terra
selfish
ed
man
aria,
who only knows how to take and never give,
convivono
with this
in
act
pace e
steals and takes
serenità.
away that element
Le
which,
ondine
transformed,
proteggono
becomes value,
l'elemento,
becomes a sign of civilization. Here,
tornerà
the
ad
world
essere
begins. Here,
elemento
damnation
puro.
begins. Everything
Ho
starts to
usato
fall
molto,
apart. Harmony
spesso
is
l'acqua
broken.
sul
The world
palcoscenico,
begins and will
anzi è
return to
una mia
harmony when
ossessione.
gold
Credo
returns to
ho
being a pure
incominciato
element.
25
I
anni
have used
fa
water a lot, often on
per
stage. In fact, it is an
investigare,
obsession of mine.
per trovare meglio la capacità
I
di
believe I
dominarla
started
sul
25 years
palcoscenico,
ago
con i
to
movimenti,
investigate and better
con i
understand how to
danzatori,
control it on
con i
stage, with
cantanti,
movements,
con
with
i
dancers,
tecnici.
with singers, with
È molto
technicians.
difficile.
It is very difficult. It
Richiede,
requires an enormous
richiede
effort
uno
from
sforzo
everyone.
enorme da parte di
It is
tutti,
not just a matter of
da parte di
skill,
tutti. Non
but
è
for me it is important that this water
solamente
has a
una
philosophical
questione
value,
di
and therefore there
abilità,
must be a familiarity with its
ma
control.
per me è
It must be used in a
importante che
way that is
quest'acqua
absolutely
abbia un
strong
valore
but natural.
filosofico
The
e
difficulties are
pertanto
countless. First of all, because water on stage cools down quickly, it creates a very difficult sensation for those immersed in it. The effect, including this discomfort, creates even stronger and more beautiful emotions.
Many audiences said the costume designs are extraordinary, especially the giants who are portrayed as twice as tall as ordinary people. How did you achieve such impressive effects on stage?
Ma i giganti... Allora, nel Rheingold ci sono diverse caste, diversi gruppi che rappresentano i passi successivi.
In Rheingold, there are different castes, different groups that represent the successive stages of human groups, perhaps. For example, the giants are the Urmenschen, the workermen, endowed with a capacity for construction. So to represent them, I wanted not to limit myself to the protagonists alone, but to their, in German it's called Ausstrahlung, their emanation. They are accompanied by a group of dancers who perform their movement, who, for instance, abduct Freya and who still articulate their movement. These two singers are placed on very high stilts which double their height, and they all naturally wear costumes that represent a painting which for me is very representative. It represents the effort of man, which, however, is shipwrecked. It is the raft of hope.
There are so many ingenious and creative designs in this production. Can you share some other design elements that you feel particularly proud of?
Perché per me era importante che, prima di tutto, che il costume non fosse mai un costume, cioè un vestito. Il costume
It was important to me that, first of all, the costume was never just a costume, meaning a piece of clothing. The costume must always symbolically represent the character and help the audience unleash their imagination and creativity. In any case, I was very keen on having costumes that were neither historical nor contemporary, but at the same time that gathered the entire journey of civilization while being universal, meaning that there should also be a correlation with the ancient history of China. Because in the end, what I want to convey is that all mythologies stem from the same human need to answer these archetypal questions about one's origin. Therefore, I wanted, for example, for the Nibelungs to also represent an ancient Chinese mythology.
Dalla stessa necessità dell'uomo di conoscere.
Naturally, the audience cannot understand this from a distance. Perhaps they could understand it in an exhibition, in a display, which will surely happen, and see up close and understand more. But what matters is the emanation. Indeed, this is what I believe reaches the audience.
What are the most challenging aspects of bringing Das Rheingold to life on stage? How long did you spend preparing for this big production?
Ma credo sono tantissimi anni che lavoro a questo ring.
I believe I've been working on this ring, Der Ring des Nibelungen, for many years because it was a project I had already considered many years ago. In reality, it is an inner project, let's say, that everyone develops voluntarily. The fact is that Pino Cuccia called me just before the COVID epidemic to propose this ring here at the NCPA, where I had already done Romeo and Juliet and was scheduled to do Gounod's Faust. Then this project was canceled due to COVID, and the idea remained, this Wagnerian idea that I cared very much about. So we have been working on it for maybe 5 years, but only this year did we decide to realize it. It has been a long conceptual journey, and from a technical standpoint, it was perhaps a bit rushed, but I'm very happy because when things are meant to happen, they lead to great surprises.
We know that Wagner revolutionized opera with his concept of the total work of art, where poetry, visual arts, music, and drama are unified. As an opera director who holds multiple artistic roles, how do you understand the Wagner's concept, and how do you apply his concept into your work?
Io in realtà non ho mai applicato uno sforzo concettuale per capire Wagner. È stato il compositore che mi ha attratto quando ero ragazzo, bambino.
In reality, I have never applied a conceptual effort to understand Wagner. He was the composer who attracted me when I was a young boy, and for whom I have always wanted to do the work I've done. The logical thing would have been to do only Wagner's works. In reality, life took me to other titles, other adventures, other territories, and I believe this is the mystery of life.
E questo credo che è il mistero della vita. Però è lì, quando io ero ragazzo, che chiudevo gli
But it
occhi
was there when I was a boy that I would close my eyes and listen all day, and even during the night while sleeping, I was always listening to his music.
ascoltavo sempre la
I
sua
grew up
musica.
feeling
Io
those
ho
sensations
proprio
and dreaming of
sono
the
cresciuto
Gesamtkunstwerk, that
sentendo
is,
quelle
this form of total artistic
e
expression.
sognando la Gesamtkunstwerk.
And my language is certainly not what is in fashion right now. Mine is a language that speaks either to a very new audience or to a very open audience, eager to explore new horizons. For me, Wagner gives me this opportunity, and that's why I'm doing it here in Beijing, because here I can reach a different, new, diverse audience that looks to the future and above all is not embarrassed to experience pure and genuine emotions. I believe that music is spirituality. I believe that music leads to the discovery of the unconscious, of the deep reasons for our lives. And today we live in a strange, difficult time. We no longer have the opportunity to be with ourselves. We no longer go to church. We no longer have time to read and study. We are contaminated by technology. We always have our phones in hand, even at night, so we are never alone. However, in the theater, we are required to turn off our phones and embark on a journey. I do not want to miss this opportunity to make the audience embark on a journey within themselves. Therefore, I am not interested in them traveling through my work, my creativity, or my aesthetics, but in them making a journey within themselves. That is my goal. That is what I dream of.
The Ring cycle is known as the pinnacle of opera. In your opinion, what are the key requirements for a theatre company to successfully stage the entire Ring cycle?
Fare il Ring e soprattutto fare Rheingold implica per un teatro una sfida enorme. Perché? Perché la partitura di Wagner
Doing the Ring, and especially doing the Rheingold, represents an enormous challenge for a theater. Why? Because Wagner's score demands grand scenes, transitions from a mystical world to an archaic world, and from an archaic world to an imaginative world. One moves from hell to paradise, and this is difficult to achieve. It's difficult to realize, but not impossible. Here we have great technology, but above all, we once again have that willingness and desire to create, which has allowed me to build a grand scenic machine, which is rare in today's theater. So I am very pleased, and for me, this is a very important experiment.
In your observation, how do Chinese audiences respond to Western operas? Were there any special considerations or cultural challenges that you encountered?
Io non faccio mai differenza tra le razze, tra le persone, tra le età.
I never make a distinction between races, between people, between ages when it comes to a true work of art. A true work of art releases and awakens emotions that are universal. So I don't make a distinction between Eastern opera, Western opera, between Eastern spectators and Western spectators when the work addresses deep emotions. Naturally, if these emotions are not conveyed through language, but through music in this case, which is a universal emotion, I never see a difference. The emotion is the same. Of course, it is stronger when someone experiences it for the first time. For example, in Europe, my main task is to always awaken a sense of novelty in the audience. For instance, with an Aida or a Nabucco, which they have heard and seen many times, I always have to find a way to make them experience it as if for the first time, to help them understand things they hadn't before. Here, it might be both easier and harder because I need to captivate an audience that might be somewhat prejudiced, thinking, I don't understand the words or know the dramaturgy or the story. However, the magic of opera is precisely that it becomes even greater when you don't understand. Because by not understanding, the deep curiosity is more intrigued and more engaged.
I think with your many talents, you could easily work in the more lucrative industries like film or television. What draws you to opera so passionately?
No, mi hanno proposto tantissime volte di fare film, di fare di anche fare musical. E invece io mi sono sempre ostinato, io sono un artista.
I've been offered numerous times to make films or musicals, but I've always been stubborn. I am an artist, a distinct kind of artist. I am, so to speak, an independent artist. Just as there is mainstream cinema and large-scale productions, there is independent cinema created by artisans. I am an artisan. This is my world, definitely. And I don't know how to do anything else, as I have dedicated my life to understanding this, how it connects with music and text, how to master movement with choreography and singers, the fabric, and finding a unified language. For example, spoken theater is not for me. I've always left it aside. Cinema is a different dimension. It's not this magic. I love opera, but I love it in my way and present it in my way. Not all theaters can or should present my work. I am suited to a specific type of audience and certain types of theaters. This has always been a very definitive choice for me. Even recently, I am always offered musicals and other things. But no, the only more popular work I've done is at the Arena di Verona, where we reach many spectators every night, and also through video. At first, I was very opposed to the video distribution of my work because I believe it's a bit like a religious service or ceremony. My work needs to be experienced live. It doesn't have the same energy on video. However, I have come to terms with it because today we live in an era where many people may live far away and cannot come to the theater. So it is also right that all of this is documented. For example, at the NCPA, there is a team that has recorded my work with great sensitivity, and this is very important to me.
In today's fast-paced world, what do you believe opera can offer modern audiences? And what makes Wagner's operas, particularly the Ring Cycle, still relevant today?
Ma arriva proprio, credo, la domanda e la ragione più importante per cui siamo qui e abbiamo lavorato tanto. Io credo ciecamente nell'opera oggi. Perché credo nell'opera? Perché in un
But I believe this brings us to the most important question and reason why we are here and have worked so hard. I firmly believe in opera today. Why do I believe in opera? Because in a contemporary world that is sick with realism, intelligence, and technology, where we want to understand, explain, and show everything, opera is truly a way to recover humanism, the ability of humans to experience pure emotions. Without explanations, opera speaks to everyone, to all ages, to all cultures. You don't need to be cultured or developed, it speaks to children, adults, and the elderly alike. It is important to open yourself up, sit down, and take a journey. Some will understand everything, some will understand the story, the reasons and values, but I believe everyone can experience the emotions. And it gives us an opportunity, as I said before, to be with ourselves and to discover the secrets of our lives. When I sit down and listen to the music, I don't see the story of the director, the author, or the characters on stage. I see, like in a mirror, my own life. So, I strongly believe in Wagner, especially here in China, because not understanding the words gives the chance to discover them, to go home and understand better what happened, to open up to a world different from what television offers. That's the magic of theater.
Now let's turn our attention to the production side of this monumental opera. Our next guest is Miss Wei Lanfen, the producer of NCPA's Das Rheingold, who has overseen several of Wagner's operas in China. Miss Wei, as the producer of this monumental production, I'm sure you've also felt the immense responsibility of bringing such a masterpiece to life. Could you tell us about the NCPA's general plan for producing Wagner's Ring Cycle, and how significant is this for the NCPA?
Thank you, Ying. Actually, I'm excited about the general plan for Ring Cycle because we just started the first one, the Rheingold, in this August. And we will do the second one, the Wagner, in next May, which will be, let's say, 25. In the May of 25. And then we will do Siegfried in August of 25. We will finish the last one, the Twilight of the God, in May of 2026.
Wow, such an ambitious plan.
Yes, for us, when we are going to produce in Ring Cycle, it's more like a professional mountaineer. So after conquering one peak, and we will definitely want to conquer another more higher peak, we will present the Ring Cycle in 4 different ways, which means we will introduce 4 different creative teams to do the Rheingold, the Wagner, Siegfried, and the Twilight of the God. Why are we doing this? Because it's the first time for a Chinese organization to present the great piece of Wagner. We hope we can bring more diversity and different way of demonstration this work.
So we'll invite 4 different directors.
Yes. The Rheingold, we have invited Mr. Poda. And for Wagner, we're going to invite Mr. David Livermore, who has done Lakme for us. And we have invited Mr. Piero Odi, will do the Twilight of the God, the most spectacular one.
The Ring Cycle is known as the pinnacle of opera. From your perspective, what are the key requirements for a theatre company to successfully stage the entire Ring Cycle? And when did the NCPA feel it's time for us to take on this monumental task?
Yes, I think we are ready for this, conquest journey. First of all, we have the most advanced and sophisticated equipment and facility in NCPA. I mean, all the colleagues, they envy us. And in another word, those equipment and facilities provide the widest and the most, let's say, convenient space for all the stage directors and designers to complete their artistic creations. Secondly, since 2008, we have done more than 100 productions in total. So among them, there is Western operas, Chinese New Commission operas, drama, dance drama, Peking opera as well. The difficulty of production varies among different art forms. I think the success experience from those 100 productions give us strong confidence. The last but not the least, the number of the audience are growing in an incredible rate. For instance, the average ticket sale for this Rheingold is 95%. And what amazed us is most of the audience are in between 20 to 40.
So it takes like 16 or 17 years for the NCPA to get ready for this monumental
Yes,
opera.
exactly, yeah.
The NCPA has successfully presented several of Wagner's operas in the past. And how have Chinese audiences responded to these productions? Do you think the mythological stories in Wagner's operas are accessible and engaging for Chinese audiences?
I think, the Chinese audience, they are very open because, like I said, we have a very young audience in between 20 and 40s. So those generations, they're growing up in a very open-minded world with the easily access to the internet, to all the informations. So for them, there is no boundary in between this is Wagner's or that's, Verdi or someone else. For them, if they like them, then they like. So I'm happy, I can see from the feedback of the audience in Rheingold, they are very much attracted by the magic of Wagner's Ring. Of course, first of all, by his music and the drama in together. And also, we might see, the audience, most of the audience, when they see this Rheingold, it's their first time to see this Rheingold. Also, they are very interested in the way of the stage demonstration. I think Mr. Poda's modernization, design, and creation give those young generation more perspective to think what it is or what it looks like. I think when the Chinese audience, when they see this Rheingold, some part reminds them the close connection with their daily life. But most of the part, pull them out from the daily life. This pull in and pull out, give them, more space to think over. Where are they, what they are thinking, something like that. That's why I see Mr. Poda's design and creation attract the young and open-minded audience more.
In today's fast-paced world, there are so many forms of entertainment competing for people's attention. Where do you believe opera can offer modern audiences in China? And how do you think Wagner's operas, particularly the Ring Cycle, remain relevant today?
Yeah, it's a quite a big question. So I would like to focus in Wagner's Ring Cycle. The Ring Cycle is the work Wagner composed for the people living in the future, and we are the people in the future for him. So we get the sense, I think we get some of the message from this piece. And I do believe over time, leading by different stage directors' design and their way of redemonstration about this great piece, the people living in the future, the next generation, they will get their own message still.
Okay, I think that's the lasting appeal of mythological stories in opera.
I believe so, because I don't believe the AI,
Yeah.
those things can create, they can conquer, go beyond the human beings'
Right.
creation.
That's all for today's episode of NCPA On Stage. I hope you've enjoyed these conversations with Mr. Stefano Poda and Ms. Wei Lanfen and gained a deeper understanding of the artistry and effort behind the NCPA's production of Das Rheingold. I'm Ying, and I'll see you next time. Stay tuned for more fascinating discussions on NCPA On Stage.